Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Let's get some peeps on here, and I'll be right back. That's the back EMF over there. We got, I'll be right back, but I got, that's a new coil. We'll go over it. And then I got a new coil there. So we got dual coils. And I got them put together in series, and then coming out of one of them for there. That's it for the back EMF. Give me 1 second, and we'll walk through it. You guys are gonna love this. Alrighty, where do I start? Well, let's start by unplugging it. That's unplugged. You can see how long it's still going to spin on its own. Worked those barons pretty good. So let's go over the new features we got here, guys. All right, let's start off over here. So this is coil number 1. The core I have there is a laminated core, and it's the core that comes off the microwave transformer, the MOT. It has like a bunch of these on there that you can pull off. And what I did was, this is a 3/4 copper tubing, that long, and I have the core pushed all the way through, nice and tight, and sticking out one end, flush on the back side. For my coil windings here, I took apart 2 Tesla coils, and I proceeded to address these coil windings like I was rebuilding a Tesla coil. What's going on? On this coil here, coil 1, is the prime mover is 16 gauge wire. I wound it first, but I did wind these conicals. So if you see how they're fatter on one end and narrower on the other, is because I made one complete winding and back, and then I continued to wind the primary, or the prime mover coil, 16 gauge wire, so it's concentrated in the front here, okay, and coned down. And that was so I have a stronger magnetic field towards the end of this laminated bar, and that's 300 turns. And then I have 22 gauge wire, and I have 1200 turns. And I wound that clockwise so that the North Pole, when this is activated, the North Pole comes out here. Now the magnet that's in front of it is also a North Pole, so they're repelling each other. So we're making a compression. Remember that. We're making a compression. Very important in Mr. Leedskalnin's wheel over there, and in what we're doing here. The same over here, but the coil, let me see if I could make some adjustments here. I have to take it. The coil over here, as well as conical, but it has 300 turns as well for the prime mover, but it has 1600 turns of 28 gauge wire. And it's made identically the same. Yeah, you got that right. Just like the nipple on the back of the television set. So it puts a well. What I've learned is when you have a core, like the core we're using, right? When you have a core, the laminations right here. There's about 15 laminations in here. You see those laminations. When you have a core like this and you wind it cylinder-like all the way around, you keep going, keep going, keep going. The concentration of the magnetic field, what's up, Justin? What's up? Will be in the center of the core if you have a core in your coil. And it'll focus there. But you can move that if you do a conical to where your fat on this side and conical down to the center. And that's what we created with those two coils. And the reason of that is I always wanted to build conical, and it makes sense to have more stronger magnetic field towards the magnets. Now, this is something I wanted to tell you guys, and I'm just going to put this out there so you guys could have conversation with each other. And Ed mentions in magnetic current about it mentions about nobody focuses, or everybody focuses on the positive energy to do work, but they disregard the negative. And here, this is taking the negative, which I don't have it set up right now, but I'd like to use my oscilloscope. And what I want to display to you guys is all the energy here that we're seeing to show up. If my finger was the half of sine wave, we're using all the negative energy. We're not using the positive. The positive that we are using positive. The positive we're using is the prime movers, okay? The negative that we're discarding, but we're recollecting, and we're using that, which to me supersedes how we make motors now because they're not efficient. So basically, with having two negatives facing each other, not only are we compressing, like if we had two south together, not only are we compressing the two fields, but we're not creating a lens effect. And I believe it's the lens effect that gives you the resistance that you don't want, and that more strain on your motor, especially your generators. There's a lot going on there that's slowing everything down. So when you put a load on it, you put a stronger magnetic field in there because the lens effect shows up even more. So this won't have a lens effect because what we're going to have to do is start doing some experiments to where I guess I got to plug it in. Doing some experiments that we're checking to see how much we have going in, how much we have coming out. So right now you can see a couple things. Let's do this. This is a great experiment for you. I'm going to take this resistor off, so it's light, okay? Over here we're climbing volts. Now this voltmeter is coming off of this coil. This coil's back EMF is coming into a voltage multiplier, so it's doubling the voltage. But we're doing that with the diodes and the two capacitors. It's increasing the voltage in the capacitors. Capacitors here that we have are 50 volt. Okay, 470 microfarads, 50 volt. Look at the volts climbing up. So what I've been doing is using the light, which is a 4.5 watt. It takes 12 volts to run it. I'm using it to knock down the voltage. Something happened. I don't know what I hit. Voltage. Capacitor is gone. Where's the capacitor go? I don't know, guys. My capacitor just disappeared. How'd that happen? Let me grab another. The capacitor's run off on me like that. Yeah. Better dropped on the floor. So we just took away half that sine wave. That's another thing that amazes me. There it goes. Just start climbing. There it is. Voltage is up there now. Hey, Tommy. Yeah, he did using threes. That's why I went with the primary, the prime mover being 300. Then I was going to multiply it in threes. So, but really, the reason I need a lot of back EMF or trigger wire on the bifilar is because you need enough voltage to get the transistor to turn on and off. And that's why I wound these, to get the transistor to activate. We're not going to be using a reed switch too long. But look at the volts. The volts over here is up to 64 volts at DC volts coming out of the voltage multiplier. So, oh shit. Wow, did you see that? Wow, you see that? So the two ends just touched on the voltmeter. Got a little spark gap thing going there. That's what I should be doing, putting some spark gap in there so it jumps the gap. Bam, 62 volts going. It's a 50 volt capacitor. Let's go ahead and knock down the knock it down. Cover your eyes, guys. I don't know what just happened, but short now. It's too much volts blowing the damn thing right out. So let's go back to this now. So this is running smooth, and I just have this running off a transistor. On this side over here, the back EMF is going to a analog meter I got. And I got it running off a bridge rectifier all by itself. I don't really have anything holding that side. But this side here is without the voltage multiplier. So we're only pushing out of that full wave bridge rectifier 1.5 volts. Over here, look, I got in capacitors here. this sucker, how much pressure I got built up, and 63 volts, 64 volts and climbing. So over here, I got this totally set up a different way where I'm multiplying the volts. Over here, we're just showing volts, but this is the start end. And what I want to do is get use the 2N3055 transistor, control it with a potentiometer so I can control the speed of I control the voltage going in, the speed of the wheel. And then I can connect this coil back EMF into this coil's back EMF to multiply this. So this is double pressure of what I'm building right now. Let me see if I can knock down some of that. Let's see if we need to get that voltage down. These things, capacitors are going to blow. Let's see if I can. Well, that one's gone, obviously. Well, I'm blowing the lights right out. Too much voltage, and it's probably got a lot of current coming out of that because of the pressure. So the pressure in the capacitor. So, yeah, I don't know what I got to do. Well, we're going to watch these capacitors blow up. They blow up, they blow up. Let's see how far we can push them before they blow up. How about that? Wheels turning beautifully, silent. Don't like using a reed switch, but this is it here. And then this side right here is just recording the back EMF off of that coil. And just using a 12-volt battery. I have to get some, I guess, batteries for this. And what I want to do is, on the next video we do live, we'll show current that we're driving the motors with. And then we're going to frickin' put current on the output and try to match the current coming out as the current coming in. It's the only thing I can do to really just verify power in, power out, right? It's the current. Voltage is one thing, but voltage doesn't mean you have the current. So the current it takes for this battery to drive them two coils takes good current. And I didn't do the math, but 300 turns, 2 coils. I think I'm at 12 volts. I think I'm at 19 amps is what I'm pulling. I was doing that for these coils. So I may be wrong because these coils are pulling 19 amps on 12 volts, which is great for 16 gauge wire. And it's 300 turns as well. This over here should be pulling, I got to do the math, but I haven't done the math. But regardless, look at the speed. Let's, since we got so much going on there, let's put a house light on it. Because that is a lot of blowing those other lights, right? Let's put this regular house light bulb, the fluorescent. Alrighty. 62 volts, staying steady. So, that's this being flashed. Let's do this. Let's take this off. And let's throw it over here, because that's DC. Let's throw it against the AC over here. Let's throw it on this sucker. So we're going to put this here. And then we're going to tie this into the AC side, not the DC side. Nothing. Yeah, it's flashing. Not as much as that side. So like I said, it really comes down to current. Because you can have voltage all damn day. And without current, you'd be playing with electrostatics, which we're going to bring in here anyway, because the electrostatics, I think I figured out a way to turn them into more inductive static plates. So we're popping off of this. Positive. So there's some kind of frequency going there that I'm going to have to look into. What's going on, Tyler? So my hand on this is making a difference. Without my hand, you can barely see it. It's doing it. See, this is the thing. I got a hunch, guys. Leave your comments on this. My hunch is this. If we have something turning like this and it's able to create motion, and the power that it takes for that motion to be created, if we can minimize it and then realign it so we're not focusing on the electromagnetic. We're focusing more on the ether. We're focusing more on crystals, compression, because I keep picking up on this, and I don't know why, but this is amazing. I mean, look at this thing. This thing is it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. Quiet, too. What's going on, Anthony? It's crazy. But we're using negative energy. We're eliminating the lens effect. Sorry about that. Family calls. And I gotta go when family calls. can see this side staying pretty steady with its voltage. So that's pretty much my tickler. My tickler or my trigger voltage at a steady 1 volt, which is great. And then over here, I can multiply the voltage by a lot. So I can knock down that voltage with a resistor and or a voltage or a voltage what you call it, regulator, voltage regulator. So I can just control the voltage that goes into the transistor, fires the transistor, put a potentiometer on it, and I can control the speed here. Now the speed, we can look for frequencies. When we look for frequencies, why are we messing with frequencies? Well, frequencies can mean we can tap into the grounding pipe, which I was saying that if we're going to create, like Tesla created, an ethereal generator. And that's why this is important to start the process. And you need something that's in motion. And the ethereal generator, I have no clue what that would consist of, other than some of my knowledge, I guess, with Tesla and Steinmetz and Heaviside and Faraday and Edison, Leitworth, Leedskalnin, so forth, so forth. So that's what that load on. These volts you're seeing here is what this load on. I'll take the load off and watch the volts climb. Watch them volts climb. And that's a 50 max capacitor. Both of these capacitors. One's getting off the diode one's getting fed off the diode on one side of the sine wave. One's getting fed off the other side of the sine wave. And riddle me this, guys. We're only using half the sine wave. We're using a negative and a negative. We're not using above the positive side of the sine wave. We're in a whole different ball game here. We're way outside the envelope of norm, okay? Way outside the envelope. We're using negative against negative. We're on the below the sine wave chart, and if we use positive against positive, we'd be above the sine wave chart. And if you use both and mix your magnets, then you'd have to have something that's going to be switching and changing. And that's one crazy stuff that I thought with edge wheel is I'm going to, all these coils that I wound on the wheel are positioned and wound according to the pole on the end, okay? North, south, north, south, north, south. What I'm going to do is intermediately on every other one, I'm going to counter wind them with a separate turnings, and I want to be able to make all the magnets north. So between north on those magnets and north on these coils, there'll be no lens effect, and every single one will be pushing the other one away. So this thing will have so much damn torque, it'll be sick. But we're not there yet because there's a lot to be learned here before I bounce back over to the big guy. What's going on, Angel, in the house? This is the Vinny St. Vincent channel. And that's Vinny in the back right there. Staying steady. Increased up to 63 volts. Be sick how much torque will be on that machine. Disgustingly sick. I wish I knew my RPMs right now. I got to put some gauges up. I'm excited about all this. All right, guys. Well, listen, Tesla used his knowledge on ether, the compression, and how when you create compression like that in the ether, you it shows up in the crystals. If it shows up in crystals, especially a piezo crystal, then it also shows up in the ground everywhere because the ground is loaded with crystals in the caves. Every ore that we have has crystals of some sort where it originated from, near it, or on it, or next to it, or the backside of it. So the compression is where we're going after a lot of these studies here. So I hope you guys enjoy the channel. If you do, tell a friend. I'd like to see this channel increase more. I'm sort of elevated my studies here now in a better direction than I was in the beginning. It's real stagnant for a good 5 years, just me toying with it. But on top of that, I've learned, read, looked, followed, chased a lot of rabbits down a lot of holes. But if I can say anything to all you guys who are learning and who already know a lot of stuff or mid-range stuff and just want to do something different, even if you're electrical engineers or some type of engineers, you know, I'm going to say it in the simplest way I can say it. It's better to love and lost than it is to not loved at all. And to be able to go through the experiments and learning was a way more important than the jackass who said he had free energy and you follow his thing and it was nothing but a hoax. So, peace out, my bro hams. That's my boy Tyler Gardner. Hey, Tyler. So I just planted today. I from seed. I bought 100 of Carolina Reaper seeds, and I just took 24 solo cups that I had laying around, cut the tops off, put 5 holes in the bottom of it, put some beautiful soil in each one, and put 3 seeds in each one, lightly down, and gave them some water and put them out in some good, beautiful Florida sun today. And now I have them in the house. And in about 25 to 30 days, I'll show you guys my little kids that I'm growing, which are my Carolina Reapers. And you're probably asking yourself, what the heck are we doing with Carolina Reapers? Well, Tyler, I think that you need to email me, VinnySt.Vincent@AOL.com. Hemp is the start of the growing process of all the oils that we're selling. 80 acres is nice. You could probably, out of 80 acres, I think you could probably get, I forget how much oil. I got to do the math on that, but I got some friends who are inspectors out in Vegas, and we have a lot of conversation back on the hemp growers versus the pot growers. And why I was growing the Carolina Reapers is that I did a study back when I started alkaline and water and doing studies on the body with water, and realized that a lot of people that use peppers in their diet have less chance of a heart attack or any clog up or strokes, and that's because the capsaicin in the pepper sort of melted the plaque, and the plaque is what causes all that, and that's why I do it. I put it in my pickles. I make pickles, and I put it in my pickle juice, and I drink that a little bit every day and have some pickles and keep that in my blood. Until next time, you guys. Anthony Electric, I am back in the house. That's 60 volts, guys. Later, Tyler. Got my email. Email me. Vinny's hunting something. I'm getting a nice wind off of this thing. It's like a fan. Bet if I put a little restriction on it, it'll... No, they didn't blow up yet. There must be some dissipation. That's what I was saying. Voltage versus current, you know, if you put a load on that, it'll drop down. And that's where you can see where your currents... There you go. See that sucked up juice, knocked it down. Now we're down in the low 20, 30 range. I can see it blinking. And you can see where your current and your voltage. But remember this, guys. And I've been a guy that's been a great fan of the NSTs. You know, their voltage, their current limited. And what I'm a fan about is though that even though they're limited, I always thought that that the higher the voltage, the lower the current. But that's not always necessarily true because current follows voltage. It goes along with voltage. So if you put more water in the hose, you're going to have more current. Plain and simple. So, all right, you guys. Yeah. That sucker's moving, hauling right now. Let's get it. See how long it takes to turn off. Vin! What's up, boo-boo? Good boy. Get him, Vinny. Watch him out there. They want to hurt Dad. Got some bad ones. So you can see. Let's put some. I might have some LEDs to burn up some of that juice in those capacitors. No, it's gone. All right, guys. Have a great night. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments. We'll get into the ethereal part of recepting the energy in. It's the way we're going to get the energy is we're going to be getting into electrostatics, and we're going to get into compression in a way to where we're using a piezo crystal. And that crystal, no matter where it is in the room, that's how Tesla had that Aero car running miles and miles away, is because he was able to bring that into a compression. Somehow, the compression was made by the motor or by the electrical system of the motor, and he was able to use a piezoelectric crystal. And that's where the ethereal energy came in through his coil setup. We'll talk about it later.